You ever walk into your own home and feel like a guest? Like something's shifted, like the walls are keeping secrets? That was me the night everything changed. I opened the door, set down my briefcase, and heard laughter from the kitchen, but it stopped the moment I stepped inside. That's when I knew. My name is Alex Monroe. I'm 26. Mechanical engineer. Nothing flashy, just a guy who builds things that work and doesn't say much unless it matters. I married Sandra 4 years ago. She's sharp, elegant, ambitious, the kind of woman who lights up a room and doesn't let you forget it. And I loved her, God help me. I thought we were a team. Turns out I was just a piece on someone else's chessboard. Sandra always had a complicated family. Her mother, Isabella, made it clear from the start she didn't think I measured up. Too blue-collar. Too predictable. And Serena, Sandra's older sister? Sweet on the surface, but always living in her own shadow. Married to Arnold, a pediatrician with the personality of a doorknob. But he was loyal. Or so I thought. That night, I walked in on a conversation I was never meant to hear. The words were hushed, but clear enough. Sandra, are you absolutely sure you want to go through with this? You can't unring a bell. I'm sure, she said, her voice low and steady. It's what's best for the family. For the family. My heart was pounding. I waited until they noticed me. Sandra flinched. Isabella gave me that tight, insincere smile she always used when she was cornered. What's going on? I asked. Silence. Then Sandra said, Alex, we were going to talk to you tonight. But they already had a plan. A sick one. One that didn't involve me. Not really. Serena, devastated by infertility, wanted a child. And the family, in all their twisted logic, had decided the solution was for Sandra to carry a baby for her. But not just as a surrogate. No. Sandra was going to conceive it naturally with Serena's husband. With Arnold. I laughed at first. I genuinely thought it was a joke. Then I looked around the room. No one was smiling. And that's when the world cracked open beneath me. I didn't yell. Didn't throw anything. Didn't cry. I just stood there, trying to process what I was hearing. You're going to sleep with Arnold? I asked Sandra, my voice barely above a whisper. She wouldn't look at me. It's not like that, Alex. It's a gift. Serena can't, she's falling apart. She cries every night. You've seen her. You mean I've seen the result of your mother's emotional blackmail? I snapped. But that's not my business, right? None of this is. Because you made the decision without me. Isabella stepped in like the ice queen she was. You're being dramatic. This isn't about you, Alex. This is about family. About doing something bigger than yourself. And Arnold. I asked, turning to him. How did you justify this to your wife? He had the decency to look ashamed. It's her idea, he muttered, nodding toward Sandra. But Serena, she agreed. So did Sandra. So did Arnold. So did Serena. Even Isabella. All of them had signed off. Except me. I was the husband, but apparently that didn't mean much. Sandra finally looked at me. It's already in motion. We've talked to a specialist and I'm ovulating this week. That was the moment something inside me broke. She wasn't just cheating on me. She wasn't even being swept away by passion or love. This was premeditated. Clinical. Cold. You're my wife, I said quietly. And you're choosing to get pregnant by another man. For your sister. Like I'm irrelevant. Her voice cracked for the first time. I didn't know what else to do. Serena was spiraling. Mom said if I really loved my sister, I'd help her. And if you really loved me? I asked. She said nothing. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay next to a woman I no longer recognized, staring at the ceiling. By morning, I had a plan. Because betrayal this calculated deserves a response just as precise. They wanted to cut me out of the family? Fine. I'd cut them out of everything else. The morning after that conversation, I didn't pack a bag. I didn't scream. I didn't even argue. I kissed Sandra on the forehead and made her coffee like nothing had changed. If they wanted me out of the picture, I'd vanish on my terms. I went into work early. Sat at my desk, eyes fixed on the glowing screen, but my mind was elsewhere. Everything we'd built, the house, the savings, the little routines, had all just become tools. Pieces on the board. And I knew how to move them. First, I logged into our joint accounts. I'd been the one managing our finances since day one. Sandra hated numbers, always said spreadsheets gave her migraines. So she never changed the passwords. Within 15 minutes, every cent was moved into an offshore account I'd set up 2 years ago for investment opportunities. She thought it was just a rainy day fund. Now it was my freedom fund. Next came the house. We bought it together, but it was under my name. A quiet perk of having better credit. I called our realtor, a friend from college, and told him I wanted to list it privately. No signs. Discreet showings only. He asked if Sandra knew. I said not yet. He didn't push. By the end of the week, the house was in escrow. By Monday, our furniture was being hauled off by buyers I found online. I kept Sandra in the loop just enough to make her think it was a spontaneous decision. A work opportunity in Vancouver, I told her. Could be big. Just testing the waters. She looked relieved. That's how delusional she was, still thinking I'd stay, that I'd forgive her, that I'd accept it. I watched her texting Serena that night, laughing about baby names like none of this was monstrous. She didn't even notice when I deleted our shared cloud storage. When I canceled her phone plan. When I transferred the car lease into her name alone and scheduled the final payment to bounce. By the time she caught on, I'd already be gone. They betrayed me quietly. So I'd vanish the same way, a whisper, not a bang. But the crash would come later. Much later. And much harder. A week later, I left a note on the kitchen counter. It was short. 10 words. By the time you read this, I'll be gone. Alex. No goodbyes. No explanations. Just closure. Cold, simple, clean, like the way they gutted me out of my own life. I crossed the border into Canada that morning with everything I needed, my ID, my laptop, a suitcase, and the digital key to accounts only I could access. I booked a long-term rental in a quiet town outside Vancouver, mountains in the distance, silence in the air. Peace finally. But back in Colorado? Chaos. I didn't block Sandra's number. No, I wanted her to feel the silence. To panic. To wonder what I knew and what I didn't. A week passed before the first voicemail. Alex, we need to talk. Please. I didn't think you'd just leave like that. Then came the texts. Where are you? What are you doing with our money? Why is the house empty? What did you do? Each one more frantic than the last. She still didn't get it. She thought I'd rage. That I'd fight to hold on. She didn't expect me to disappear. And that's what scared her most, the not knowing. I watched it all unfold from a distance. My friend Mark, who owed me a favor, dropped off a package at Sandra's job. A sleek white envelope with no return address. Inside were 2 things. A copy of the property transfer. The house she thought she'd live in with Arnold's baby. Sold. The joint account closure form. Balance, $0. She called me 33 times that day. I didn't answer a single one. That night Mark called. She lost it, man. Like, full-on meltdown in the parking lot. Screaming about betrayal. The irony's insane. She hasn't seen betrayal, I said, staring out at the pines. Not yet. Because I wasn't done. I didn't just want to walk away. I wanted her to feel the emptiness she created, not just in our marriage, but in her soul. She chose her sister's desperation. Her mother's manipulation. Her own ambition. Now, all she'd have left was regret. 3 weeks after I left, I got a message from an unknown number. No greeting. No name. Just 5 words. Arnold moved out last night. I didn't reply, but I smiled. The cracks were forming faster than I expected. Turns out, the grandbaby plan wasn't going as smoothly as Sandra imagined. She and Arnold had done the deed, or at least tried to, but it wasn't romantic, or easy, or even bearable. Serena had insisted on being in control. Ovulation charts, clinical timing, scheduled intimacy like it was a science project. Sandra thought she could handle it. But the shine wore off quick. My contact, Serena's coworker, whom I'd quietly reached out to during my final week, fed me updates. She didn't even know I was the ex-husband. Just that I was concerned family looking out for Serena. She's a wreck, she told me. Serena's constantly crying. Arnold's been sleeping on the couch. And Sandra, well, she looks like she hasn't slept in days. It was working. Sandra had thrown away our marriage thinking she could play savior. That by giving her sister a child, she'd be adored, the golden daughter, the selfless wife, the perfect woman. But perfection doesn't survive reality. Arnold couldn't perform on demand. The pressure from Serena made him resentful. The guilt made Sandra cold. And Isabella? She just kept pushing. Don't back out now, she told Sandra. You committed. This is about legacy. About family. Legacy. They talked about children like trophies. Like assets. Like currency. I knew they were cracking when Serena called me. That part did surprise me. I need to understand, she said, voice trembling. Why did you leave like that? You didn't even say goodbye to any of us. I held the phone to my ear, silent. You were family, Alex. You were family. We thought you'd support us. My laugh was cold. Funny. I thought you were family too. But you were planning to raise your sister's child, one conceived while she was still married to me, and didn't think to even ask how I felt about it. Silence. I was just so desperate, she whispered. You weren't the only one. Then I hung up. I wasn't going to console the people who buried a knife in my back with a smile on their faces. They played house. Now they'd get to live with what they built, broken pieces and all. It was a rainy Thursday when I got the message. This time from a mutual friend, Natalie, one of Sandra's old college buddies. She didn't know I'd disappeared for good. Just figured I was traveling or cooling off. She always had a soft spot for me though, and apparently her conscience finally caught up. I shouldn't be telling you this, but Sandra's in the hospital. I stared at the message. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Another part, colder, darker, wanted to know everything. So I called. Natalie didn't waste time. She collapsed at work. Stress, exhaustion, I don't know. She's been going through hell. The whole baby thing, it didn't work. My pulse didn't change. I just listened. She got pregnant, Natalie continued, voice dropping, but she lost it. Miscarriage at 10 weeks. It was bad. I didn't say a word. She hasn't told Serena yet. Or Arnold. I think she's scared. Good, I thought. Because now she'd feel it, loss. Not just of a child, but of control. Of certainty. Of the fantasy she built on top of my wreckage. But it wasn't over. Sandra was still trying to salvage the illusion. Still playing puppet master, still hoping to keep the truth from unraveling everything. But secrets like that? They don't stay buried. Especially not when I start digging. I sent one envelope. Just one. No return address. Inside, a copy of the hospital's discharge form that Natalie had texted me a photo of. Along with one line, typed and centered. Ask her who the baby really belonged to. I mailed it to Serena. It wasn't just revenge, it was justice. Because I had been treated like a disposable piece in their plan when I was the only one who never lied. The fallout came fast. 2 days later, Serena called me again. This time she was screaming. You let this happen? You sat back and let us break our lives. You're sick. No, I said calmly. I just stopped pretending like it was my job to fix yours. Then I hung up again. They wanted a child to fix everything. Now they had nothing. And that was only the beginning. Isabella called me. Her. Of all people, I never expected her voice on my phone again. Alex, she said, stiff and formal like always, we need to speak. It's important. I almost laughed. I hadn't heard from her since the night she sat there, sipping wine, as my marriage was carved apart like a roast. That woman thought she was untouchable, the matriarch, the mastermind. But now? Now her voice was trembling just beneath the surface. I assume this is about the fallout, I said flat. She didn't deny it. Sandra is unwell. The miscarriage, the strain, she's not herself. She is herself, I replied. You just never saw it. There was a pause. I made mistakes, she admitted, the words crawling out of her throat like barbed wire. But I was trying to protect my daughters. I almost dropped the phone. By orchestrating a pregnancy between a married woman and her brother-in-law? I asked. You call that protection? She was desperate. Isabella snapped. Serena couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, she wanted to die. And you sacrificed me, I cut in. Like I was nothing. You all did. Isabella's voice turned ice again. So this is about revenge then? No, I said calmly. Revenge is just the bonus. This is about consequence. Click. I didn't need to say more. Because while she was calling me, Sandra was losing the last thing she thought she still had, her reputation. Serena, shattered by the truth, had begun talking. First to Arnold. Then to her friends. Then, according to Natalie, to a therapist who also knew a reporter. One blog post appeared on a local women's health site, vague, anonymous, but damning. A story about a well-known family who tried to create a child through unethical, emotionally coercive means. It went viral in their circle. Everyone knew who it was. The whispers started. Clients at Sandra's law firm began canceling appointments. Isabella's seat at the country club's charity board was suddenly under review. I hadn't lifted a finger. All I'd done was let the truth out. Funny thing about women like Isabella, they build castles out of lies, but never reinforce the walls. It only takes one crack and the whole thing caves in. I knew the message was coming before I ever read it. Sandra was predictable like that, always thinking charm and desperation could fix the damage she caused. It landed in my inbox at 2:13 a.m. Subject line, please. Her email was long, rambling, drenched in regret. She talked about the miscarriage. How she couldn't sleep. How Arnold had left for good, packed a bag in silence and never looked back. Serena wasn't speaking to her. Isabella had turned cold, blaming Sandra for mismanaging the situation. That part made me laugh out loud. She ended with, I never meant to hurt you, Alex. I see it now. What I had with you, it was real. Can we talk? I didn't reply. So she tried again. Texts. Voicemails. A handwritten letter forwarded through a mutual friend. The same woman who'd once looked me in the eyes and justified sleeping with another man for her sister was now begging me to come back. To be her safe place. Her stability. Her second chance. But it wasn't guilt. It wasn't even love. It was survival. Sandra was circling the drain and I was the last branch sticking out of the cliff. She had nowhere left to turn. Arnold was gone. Serena was unraveling. Isabella had backed away to protect her own image. And Sandra, elegant, untouchable Sandra, had been reduced to pleading with the husband she betrayed like he was the last lifeline on earth. I stared at her message for a long time. Then I did what she never expected. I picked up the phone and I called her. She answered on the first ring. Alex, her voice cracked, surprised, raw. I just want to make something clear, I said, calm and ice cold. You didn't lose me because of the miscarriage. You didn't lose me because of the fallout. You lost me the moment you decided to betray me and call it sacrifice. I didn't know what I was doing, she whispered. I thought I was helping. No, I interrupted. You knew exactly what you were doing. You just didn't think I'd leave. You thought I'd stay and smile like a good little husband while you rewrote the rules. Well, here's a new rule, you don't get to crawl back now. But Alex, don't call me again. Then I hung up. And this time I blocked her number. After that final call, I expected peace. What I didn't expect was how fast everything fell apart for Sandra. Within days, word got out at her law firm. Someone leaked the story, maybe Serena, maybe a jilted coworker. But when whispers turn into meetings and meetings turn into, we need to discuss your future here, you know the fall is official. She was put on indefinite leave. Pending review. Which, in corporate speak, means start packing. Natalie told me Sandra moved back in with Isabella. The house they grew up in cold, empty, and steeped in control. Arnold had filed for divorce already. Serena moved to Arizona to be near some fertility clinic. The family dinner table? A war zone of silence and blame. Meanwhile, in Vancouver, I was thriving. The engineering firm I joined had offered me a senior role after just 6 weeks. Turns out when you stop wasting energy holding together a toxic marriage, you can actually breathe. I was building again, not just machines, but a new version of myself. One that didn't ask for permission. One that didn't explain his worth. I started trail running in the mornings. Built a routine that didn't revolve around keeping someone else happy. Even met a woman at a bookstore, nothing serious, just conversation, but it reminded me I wasn't broken. I was just free. And Sandra? She started emailing again, not to beg this time. To blame. You humiliated me. You didn't have to destroy everything. I lost the baby, Alex. Isn't that punishment enough? No. No, it wasn't. Because the punishment wasn't mine to give. It was consequence. It was the mirror finally reflecting back who she really was and who I'd been too blind to see. I never responded. Not to her. Not to Isabella. Not to Serena. They created the fire. I just walked away and let them burn. Funny how they called me heartless after all that. But you know what? Rebuilding your life doesn't mean forgetting who tried to wreck it. It just means you don't give them the power to wreck it twice. It was a Monday morning, crisp and clear, when I saw her again. Not in person, but on my screen. Sandra had flown to Vancouver. She didn't text. Didn't call. Just showed up. I found out when I opened an email from my firm's front desk. Subject, visitor in lobby. Message, a woman named Sandra Monroe is here asking to speak with you. Should we send her up? I stared at the screen. The audacity. After everything. After betrayal, deceit, humiliation, she still believed she had the right to show up in my world. Like her presence was a gift. I typed back. No. Tell her I'm in a meeting. Then tell her I'm always in a meeting. That should have been the end of it. But Sandra doesn't fold easy. 2 hours later, she was waiting outside my building. I saw her through the glass as I stepped out for coffee, standing there in a designer coat, makeup perfect, eyes tired. The image of a woman who had nothing left to lose and still didn't understand why. Alex, she called, stepping forward like we were friends. Please. I didn't stop walking. Please just talk to me, she said, keeping pace beside me. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. I sighed, stopped on the corner, and looked her dead in the eyes. 5 minutes, Sandra. That's all you get? She blinked, surprised I even agreed. I miss you, she said. I miss us. I made a mistake. I thought I could be everything to everyone, but I couldn't. And I lost you. I lost the baby. I lost everything. I said nothing. I just want a chance to explain. You already did, I replied. The night you told me it was for the family. That's who you were. That's who you are. Tears welled in her eyes. I thought I was doing the right thing. No, I said, calm and final. You thought you were doing the acceptable thing. And acceptable meant anything but choosing me. She reached for my hand. I pulled it away. And then I gave her the last line I'd been holding in my chest for months. Sandra, you didn't just cheat on me with another man. You cheated on me with an idea of yourself that never existed. You chose delusion over loyalty. And now you get to live with both. Her face shattered. She stepped back like the air had left her lungs. Then I turned, walked away, and never looked back. 5 minutes. That's all she got. And it was 5 more than she deserved. After that encounter, I expected silence. But toxic people rarely go quietly. 3 days later, I got a letter. Handwritten. No envelope. Just folded and slipped under the door of my apartment, which meant she'd found where I lived. The handwriting was unmistakable. Her cursive clean, controlled, pretending to be composed. It read, I understand now that I've lost you. But I need closure. If nothing else, I need you to forgive me. Please don't leave me with this weight forever. I'm not the same person. I've changed. No, she hadn't. She was just losing. I wasn't angry anymore. I didn't feel hate. What I felt was certainty, the kind that comes when you finally shut the last door on a version of yourself that tolerated far too much for far too long. I didn't respond. Instead, I called my lawyer in the States. Told him I wanted to finalize everything, all legal ties severed. He sent the paperwork within the hour. Separation of assets, name removal from any lingering accounts, and an official cease and desist for the harassment. Sandra never signed it. Not at first. But then. I released the final card. Remember that house I sold? The one she thought she'd live in while raising her sister's baby? Well, before I disappeared, I made sure one key detail was preserved, security footage. Video of her and Arnold. Kissing in my kitchen. Laughing on my couch. A timestamp clear as daylight before she ever told me. I'd never needed to use it. But now she was testing boundaries. So I sent a copy. Along with one line. Try me again, and this goes to every person who ever called you professional. She signed the papers the next morning. It wasn't revenge. Not yet. It was just closure. Clean. Quiet. Legal. She left Vancouver the same day. Didn't say goodbye. Just evaporated like a storm that finally burned itself out. And me? I felt lighter than I had in years. No more begging. No more lies. No more women with beautiful eyes and empty loyalty. I was done carrying guilt that didn't belong to me. For the first time in years, my life was mine. Not shaped by guilt. Not weighed down by Sandra's needs or Isabella's judgment. Not wrapped in the barbed wire of family obligations I never agreed to. Just mine. I leased a mountain cabin an hour outside Vancouver, nothing flashy, just peace. Wooden beams, a roaring fireplace, a workbench where I could tinker with designs and prototypes. I'd taken a job with a Canadian firm that appreciated creativity over titles. They didn't care where I came from, only what I could build. And I built a lot. Engines. Concepts. A new rhythm to live by. I also met someone. Her name was Chloe, a local artist who ran a print shop in town. We met at a coffee shop. She asked me what I was sketching. I asked her what kind of paper was best for drafting. And we talked. Then we kept talking. She didn't pry about my past. Didn't ask for explanations. She liked me for who I was now, quiet, steady, healing. She reminded me what trust looked like. But I still had one piece left to play. Because revenge, a real revenge, isn't just about destruction. It's about exposure. Sandra thought her name would recover. That time would pass and people would forget. But some sins don't fade. Not when the damage runs deep. So I reached out to someone I hadn't spoken to in over a year, Blake Thompson. Freelance investigative journalist. We went to college together. He'd once said, if you ever have a story that matters, call me. I called. I gave him everything. The betrayal. The family plan. The manipulation. The recordings. The documents. The footage. He didn't ask if it was true. He just asked for permission. The piece ran 3 weeks later. Title? The Sisterhood Pact. How a modern family justified the unthinkable. No names. But every detail was recognizable to anyone in Sandra's orbit. And it went viral. Not because of scandal, but because of the question it raised. What happens when morality gets hijacked by loyalty? I watched it spread across forums. Emails leaked. Side-by-side comparisons were posted on Reddit. The anonymous became obvious. Her career? Finished. Isabella's influence? Eroded. Their family name? Tarnished. I didn't gloat. I didn't post a thing. I didn't even tell Chloe. Some victories are quieter than applause. And far more satisfying. The article shattered whatever was left of her public image. Within days, Sandra deleted her LinkedIn. Isabella's name was quietly removed from the board of a local women's foundation. Her law firm officially terminated her contract, citing reputational risk. Serena never responded publicly, but rumor had it she checked into a wellness retreat in Sedona and hadn't spoken to her mother in weeks. Then came the final reach. A letter. Thick envelope. No return address, but the handwriting, hers, was instantly familiar. I hesitated before opening it. Part of me considered tossing it in the fire. But the other part, the colder, still curious part, wanted to see how far she'd fallen. Inside were 5 pages. The first 4 were Sandra's idea of a confession. Regret-laced paragraphs full of self-pity disguised as growth. She talked about therapy. About sleepless nights. About learning what it means to be accountable. But it was the 5th page that mattered. A list of things she lost. Her marriage. Her career. Her sister's trust. Her mother's approval. Her body's ability to carry a child. At the bottom, she wrote, "You don't have to forgive me. I just need to know you don't hate me. Please. I can't keep waking up every day thinking I'm nothing." I sat with that for a long time. Sandra thought this was a redemption arc. She still didn't understand some betrayals don't deserve closure. Just consequence. So I didn't respond. Instead, I dropped the envelope in the trash. Burned it an hour later. Watched the pages curl and blacken in the fireplace until not a word remained. Because the truth was this. I didn't hate her. I didn't feel anything. And that's what destroyed her more than revenge ever could. She wanted rage. She wanted me to scream. She wanted some signal that she still mattered. But I'd moved on. Sandra was a chapter, one that ended in fire and silence. And I was already writing the next book. Spring in British Columbia hits differently. The snow melts, but not all at once, like the land is still deciding whether to let go. I understood that. Some things take time to thaw. It had been nearly a year since I left. Since I walked away from Sandra, from the poison masquerading as family, from a marriage that demanded loyalty but offered none in return. And the silence, it didn't echo. It soothed. Chloe and I had grown closer. Not in a cinematic, fireworks and roses kind of way, but in the steady, honest rhythm I'd always craved. We cooked. We worked. We shared space without expectation. One night, as we sat on the porch, stars flickering above us, she asked, "Do you still think about her?" I took a sip of wine, thought about lying, but didn't. "Not her," I said. "What I think about is the man I used to be when I was with her. The one who begged to be enough." Chloe nodded. "And now?" "Now, I didn't beg. Because I finally understood love without respect is a prison. And I'd served my sentence. But there was one last thing I needed to do before I could call it finished. I booked a ticket to Colorado. Not to visit anyone. Not to confront anyone. Just to stand in front of the grave I used to call home. The old neighborhood. The street where we hosted barbecues. The porch where Sandra kissed me goodnight while planning her betrayal behind closed doors. The house had new owners now. Fresh paint. New flowers out front. No trace of me left. Good. I left one thing in their mailbox, a small box with no note. Inside was Sandra's wedding ring. She'd taken it off long before I walked away, but I'd found it in a drawer during the sale. Kept it. Not out of sentiment, but because she didn't deserve to decide where that chapter ended. Now I had decided. I left the neighborhood and didn't look back. Back in Vancouver, I stood at the edge of a lake near my cabin. The sun was setting behind the mountains, gold burning into the water. I opened my hand, held a photo of my old life. Sandra. Me. Isabella. Serena. All smiles. All eyes. I let the wind take it. The paper fluttered once, twice, then vanished into the trees. And just like that, the past stopped having a pulse. 6 months passed. I thought it was over. Truly. The fire had burned out. The ashes had cooled. Then I got a call. Blocked number. I usually don't answer those. But this time something told me to. "Alex?" Sandra's voice. Flat. Drained. No makeup in her tone. Just truth, raw and exposed. I know I said I wouldn't call again. But I need your help. She was crying. "Isabella cut me off. Serena won't even answer my texts. I can't get work. No one will touch my name. You don't understand. I'm out of options." That was a lie. She had one option left. Me. The man she betrayed. The one she thought would crawl back the moment she snapped her fingers. The one she planned to discard and replace until the fantasy rotted and left her alone. "Please, Alex," she whispered. "I know I don't deserve anything. But if you could just tell people I'm not the villain. That I'm not a monster. I stepped outside, the evening air brushing my face, calm as ever. You want me to fix your image? No, I mean just if you could say it was complicated. That you forgave me. I smiled even though she couldn't see it. Betrayal, I said, isn't complicated, Sandra. It's simple. You made a decision. And now you're living in the world that decision built. Silence. Then a sob. Broken. Hollow. I lost everything. No, I said softly. You gave it away. And then I gave her what she truly deserved, not another insult. Not another cold monologue. Just a pause. And then. I forgive you. But I'll never forget what you taught me. Click. That was it. No grand speech. No slammed doors. Just an ending. Clean. Final. A full circle that closed with quiet justice. Because in the end, I didn't need to destroy Sandra. She did that all on her own. All I did was walk away and let the truth do the rest. Yeah? I live in a home I built with my own hands. I wake up beside a woman who speaks softly and never lies. I work with people who see my value, not just my paycheck. And the man I used to be, the one who tolerated betrayal, who explained himself to people who never earned it. He's gone. What's left is stronger, quieter, free. And that is the most satisfying revenge of all.